Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
I'm Peggy Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurant, arts, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Poppy Tooker, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. Hi, Poppy, good to see you. Hello there. Joining us a little later, Ian McNulty, food writer for the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate. Doug MacCash, who covers the city's arts and culture scenes, also for the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate. Hey, Doug. And we also have Alan Smason of theatercriticism.com and the Crescent City Jewish News. Good to see you, Alan. Hello.
I'm back.
All right, he's back. He's back. And Poppy, some convenient cocktail lessons?
Oh, there's so much fun to be had online. Wonderful thing going on at the Sazerac House. Free virtual cocktail classes, and I've got a little taste for us.
So Herb Saint is an anise liqueur inspired by absinthe, which we'll talk about when we do our little bit of our deep dive into the culture and the history of this drink itself. But when you pour 1/4 of an ounce into this chilled glass, our goal is not to just leave it there. We want to coat that chilled glass with the Herb Saint, not actually just have it pool at the bottom. So again, holding from the bottom of your chilled glass, you slowly spin it around, trying to get that Herb Saint as close to the rim of the glass as you can and make it perfectly coated. Old school bartenders would toss this up in the air in this fantastic show. I don't have that kind of dexterity. I would end up spraying the camera lens with a bunch of Herb Saint. We don't want that. So I'm going to be real careful.
The classes are taking place at 5 o'clock every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday through June the 5th. Wednesdays are for whiskey drinkers, Thursdays rum, and as we got a taste of, Fridays are all about the Sazerac. Cocktail kits are available for curbside pickup right there on the corner of Canal and Magazine Street, and you can sign up by going to visit SazeracHouse.com. Click on the events page.
All right. And, and when, in sort of in the next few weeks, we hope, or next few months, the Sazerac House itself is such a worth a visit. It's going to be great to have everybody back there because they really do give you the history of the cocktail in very fine fashion, don't they?
And it is such a fantastically technical place. It is like the Disney World of cocktails.
It is. Thank you, Poppy. And now it's time to hear from Ian McNulty.
Hi, Peggy. Restaurants are reopening all across New Orleans, but the questions that I've heard the most pertain to the old school French Creole restaurants of New Orleans. These are the places that really resonate that idea of New Orleans dining across the globe. The good news is they're coming back. I've spoken with the family owners behind them, and they all share a confidence that the traditions will continue. Their restaurants will be back. But each one is finding its own path back. And these are very different restaurants from each other, but also from other types of restaurants. This is not the neighborhood bistro down the street. You have to think about these places like grand ships getting ready for sea, the provisioning and the staffing and the building up of the steam. That's what it feels like for them. Some are already back. Galatoire's restaurant reopened this week with that classic dining room at 25% capacity, waiters in tuxedos with face masks, and a nice gussied up crowd that came out for dinner. For others, they're looking a little further ahead. Brennan's restaurant on Royal Street could be back before June. They're assessing their plans right now. And Arno's is looking perhaps for a June return for its dining rooms. They had a nice Mother's Day curbside pickup, saw a lot of local support. It was very encouraging for them. Antoine's Restaurant, the oldest restaurant in New Orleans, this true icon of French Creole dining. Their plans are still taking shape. They're looking ahead at demand, frankly. That's what all of these restaurants are having to consider right now. With tourism at a standstill and business travel nil, supporting these businesses is going to be purely up to the New Orleans local diners. So for Antoine's, they're looking across their vast restaurant, their huge staff, and pondering, when the local demand will be ready to support a reopening. So these restaurants have a lot going for them. That history, that tradition that runs deep in this town, the relationships with New Orleans diners are intense. And that's precisely what they're going to be drawing on as they do return. So keep your ears open for updates. We'll be reporting on them as they come. And if these places are important to you, remember them when they do reopen, because as bastions of New Orleans traditions, they're going to be turning to New Orleans to support their return.
Doug MacCash, Frenchmen Street has many stories these days, and alas, there's an update, isn't there?
There is. The most interesting stretch of paintings in the city got even more interesting. When the coronavirus crisis began, of course, the restaurants and bars shut down, and on Frenchmen Street, on the nightclub strip, they covered the windows and doors with plywood panels. And then since then, street artists came and began painting murals on those plywood panels. It was perfect because during the era of social distancing, you could still go out and enjoy the artworks, walking from place to place. I think there were probably more selfies taken on Frenchmen Street than any other street in the city over the last couple of months. Well, on the night before the Phase 1 comeback was to begin, someone walked Frenchmen Street and squirted paint on several of the murals. And the paint looked like it was intended to damage the murals. It had run down over their faces. Needless to say, there was a great social media outcry. I mean, those murals had fans, and everybody was quite upset about it, quite outraged. What was interesting was that a couple of the artists who had made the murals were more philosophical about it. They weren't terribly upset. They said, well, look, it's street art. It's not meant to remain pristine forever. We understand that it's not going to last and that people are going to tag on it and paint over it. So that was interesting. Even more so, what they were more worried about, they said they were more worried about the shaming that the person that had damaged their paintings was enduring. They felt like that was getting out of hand. So they both pledged to go back and repaint some of the paintings. And in the meantime, I spoke to the person who had actually squirted the paint on the murals, and he said that he didn't intend it to be damaged, that he thought that it was an interactive sort of an exhibit and that the murals were intended to be temporary anyway, and he had splashed the paint on there in a way of suggesting tears, the little rivulets of paint.
Now, we're talking specifically about the Amzie Adams self-portrait, right? Or others, too?
There were probably maybe 8 or 9 of the murals were, one of them that had been painted over was actually a sort of Mother's Day card that one of the street artists had done for his mom on Mother's Day. So he didn't want it, he didn't want it obliterated. He went back and repainted it and left some of the white paint that had damaged it in the background, so that that paint became part of the history of the painting. And like I said earlier, it made the whole experience on Frenchmen Street even more interesting.
Yes, and even Josh Winkerter, too. They messed up some of his. That's sad.
They did. I spoke to Josh. He's going to go back out and do some repainting, and he was not terribly fazed by the whole thing.
Well, that's good. He's a good sport. Well, thank you, Doug. And over to Alan. Alan, Give NOLA Day. Local theater groups can't wait, huh?
Well, no, and it's a big day, but I really wanted to point out at least 2 of them that are raising the bar so significantly. And first off, the first that I have to mention is Rivertown. They are putting on what they call an intermission cabaret, and it's so named because, of course, they're having lots of people who are going to be participating during this pandemic and going to be live streaming from the late afternoon or early evening hours all the way until possibly 8 or 9 o'clock at night. The other thing that they wanted to mention is that none other than New Orleans' own Ricky Graham is going to be directing that. So we've got a lot of nice things on the ball there. All I can tell you is that hopefully he will be joined with co-artistic directors Kelly Fushi and Gary Rucker, and they're going to have a great time bringing some of their more known artists on, as well as bringing some of the other people who might be peripherally associated with Rivertown. I will also tell you another group that has come on is Tulane and their wonderful summer lyric group. Michael McKelvey has, again, offered a similar kind of thing. They've been doing this for several years for Give NOLA, and what they basically do is they record many of the people in advance, and then they put it on Give NOLA Day to let people be more or less inspired to give more. Some of the people who are going to be there, there's a host of people, including, of course, a lot of male people that we would know, such as Sean Patterson and Keith Clavery. There are a number, but the people I'm really amazed with are the female performers: Leslie Castay, Rachel Looney, Sarah Jane McMahon, also Melissa Marshall. They've got just a whole slew of people, Maggie Windler. This is just a must-see event, and that's going to be taking place again on Give NOLA Day, which is June the 2nd. That's Tuesday. And I really wanted to let people know about that because it is really an important phase, especially since so many theaters are hurting. We'll talk again about this next week as to what other theaters might be doing. Okay. Also, I wanted to alert everybody about something that's happening. If you go online, we've been talking about lots of places to see things and to experience theater. But one of the things that's coming up is Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire. This is from the National Theater with Gillian Anderson, Ben Foster, and also Vanessa Kirby as Blanche, Stanley, and Stella. This is going to be on coming up this week. It transferred from 2013 to a Broadway run. This is an outstanding show. You won't want to miss this one.
All right, thank you so much. And now back to Poppy.
Well, now we've had a cocktail class. It's time to learn how to cook dinner. And our friends at the New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute have been offering what they're calling cooking in quarantine classes. It's a different theme every week. The classes take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're taught by Leah Saras, an amazing cooking teacher, and executive chef Scott Nesbitt. Next week is their seafood series, and this is going to cover everything from ceviche to meuniere. And they provide the shopping lists early so you can go get ready for the cooking class. And they try very hard to make sure it's all pantry friendly. Now, your fellow students are tuning in, check this out, from 40 different states, and they've had over 10 different countries, folks, tuning in and participating. The classes are free, but they are gratefully accepting any donations at all because with the schools closed, they're having a little trouble, as everyone is.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Poppy. And now let's hear some more from Ian.
It's a tough time for all businesses, and restaurants especially, some of the hardest hit pieces of the economy, right? And yet, right now, during these crazy times, we're seeing some new restaurants open. Why? Well, the plans were in place long ago, the progress had been made on construction, the money had been invested, and so owners face a decision to walk away from it, shut it down, or open up and see what the world brings. And so I found some two interesting examples of that in Jefferson Parish. One is Boulevard. Now, it's a restaurant some people are familiar with from its Metairie location. It took over the old Houston's a few years ago. And it's been a success story through this pandemic for its parent company, Creole Cuisine Restaurant Concepts. When they opened for takeout, their crowd came back. Now the dining room is open there in Metairie, and their crowd showed up. So they went ahead with their Elmwood location, newly built in the old La Madeleine location. A lot of people are familiar with that there on Clearview Parkway. Beautiful new renovation, big bar, big booths, same family-friendly modern American menu. So they made the decision to go for it, and it's planted a new option there right in Elmwood. Very different option, a very different story, is Falafel King Metairie. This is a small counter service mom and pop kind of place. They have a location in Kenner, Falafel King, Kenner and Williams. This is a similar style, but a little different concept, different management, but the same sort of Middle Eastern traditional street food. What I love about this place is they have a brick oven right up front where you can watch the pita being baked right there. Comes out all puffy and toasty, delicious. Good value, good traditional flavors, and it's right there on Vets, pretty close to Clearview Parkway. So in both cases, business owners facing a decision and have decided to open up and make a go for it. And I've been hearing, they've had some pretty good success in the early going. So another interesting take of running restaurants in this time.
Doug, many of us remember Six Flags, and a new documentary is trying to really encapsulate, isn't it?
It's true. For most of us, I think, as you drive on Highway I-10 heading east, the Six Flags New Orleans site is kind of a derelict reminder of the damage of Katrina and the 2005 flood. But little did I know, there's a community of people out in the world who are interested in those sorts of sites, those forlorn, ghostly, forbidden sites. And for connoisseurs, apparently Six Flags is the Holy Grail. It's one of the most interesting sites. So that takes us to Jake Williams, and Jake Williams is a Canadian YouTube star. He has 800,000 followers on his YouTube channel, and on his YouTube channel, he documents these sort of places, abandoned malls, empty big box stores, forgotten resorts, that sort of thing. Well, for him, Six Flags was irresistible. And he came down here and shot some video of his own, combined it with historic video that he could find, and has told the story of Six Flags, which only existed from the year 2000 when it was new until it was destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. As the hurricane approached, on the sign outside of Six Flags, they posted closed by storm. And that sign is still there, and that's what he calls the film. You can go and see some of Jake's small pieces on YouTube on his abandoned channel. So look for Jake Williams Abandoned, and you can see the trailer for the movie.
So, but you really can't see the movie yet, can you?
You can't see the movie yet. It's finished. He's searching for a distributor. Like everything else, his plans were sort of derailed when the coronavirus made it impossible to begin taking it to festivals and
so we can
showings.
get a taste. We can get a taste then.
We can get a little taste.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. And now back to Alan.
Well, Peggy, I just wanted to talk about something that's looming large now within the theater community, and that's actors' equity. And as you probably know, this is not a union town. Most people who are actors have day jobs, and they really do not have the capability, as many people do on Broadway or in Chicago or Los Angeles, to support themselves strictly as actors. So actors' equity is, of course, the union that makes sure that people are part of their union, and that if there's a contract in force, that they are part of that. They have operated here in New Orleans with what they call the NOLA contract, not to be confused with the NOLA project, but basically it was a city-specific contract that allowed actors' equity people to perform in non-equity shows. And apparently the Chicago office, which runs New Orleans, has now come down pretty hard on a lot of our local theaters. I'm going to be reporting on this a little bit more in detail, but it could have grave repercussions for a lot of people who are in the union and who would like to perform with several of the other companies. I'm not going to mention any of the companies or any of the actors, but if you know that somebody's a member of equity, they may not be able to perform in a non-equity show because of the loss of this contract. And there's a lot of money at stake in this, particularly what it would impact the new contract would impact as far as the companies to deal with. So we want to keep an eye on that very much so and see, and we'll watch that as that develops. Also, I want to let everybody know that on the NOLA Theater Talk Show, which is, again, part of our NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, we're going to have the Dashiki Divas on tonight. That's Gwendolyn Foxworth, Adela Gauthier, Barbara Hunter, Pat McGuire, and Carol Sutton. And then Monday, I want everybody to be alerted to the fact that we're going to have a reading of Maryland God. This is by Rosary O'Neill. This was actually written in 2010, and I'm not quite sure if it's ever been done before. This stars Allison Logan in the role of Marilyn Monroe, and then, of course, we'll also have Robert Pavlovich, the wonderful actor and voiceover actor who will actually be doing all the other voices. I'll be there as well to help the production along, but those are the people who do all the heavy lifting, especially Allison. Don't forget that. And coming up on June 1st, Michael McKelvey from Summer Lyric at Tulane will be with us, so keep that as in mind as well. We have that.
Thank you so much, Alan. Now time for our picks of the week. Poppy.
Everybody who's thinking about what to do with the kids this summer, there are spots available in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum Children's Summer Cooking Camp. Runs through from June through August. Go to their website to sign up. And big news, the second weekly drive-through market from the Crescent City Farmers Market has started this week. It's running on Wednesdays at their Bucktown Market site, 8 a.m. to noon. You have to go online and order your groceries in advance.
All right, thank you. Doug.
So I'm going to send you back to Frenchmen Street one more time. The most recent murals down there are by Lionel Milton, and they are called Social Distance, Social Justice. And there's layered symbolism in the murals that blends society's fears of the coronavirus with racial profiling of African Americans. And it's a very interesting piece. Take a look.
All right. Alan, your pick.
Well, as to my pick, I wanted to alert everyone that the legendary Brian Hemel, his performance in Berlioz's Les Troyens will be streaming this coming Thursday on May the 28th on the Metropolitan Opera's nightly stream. This is the performance that catapulted him to fame with Deborah Voigt and Susan Graham. I'll see you at the theater, Peggy.
And now here's Ian's pick.
My pick is Dunbar's Creole cuisine. A lot of people are familiar with it from its long history on Ferret Street. Well, Dunbar's is on Earhart Boulevard now. They're back. The dining room is open. Awesome gumbo, the great red beans and fried chicken. Just a really good place to satisfy your hunger for traditional, deep down New Orleans Creole food.
And now my picks. Screens for Good has teamed up with WYES to create a T-shirt and tote bag that helps support the station, focusing on our role as New Orleans' storyteller. You can show your support by going to WYES.org and clicking the Shop button. The T-shirts are just $25, totes just $20, plus tax and shipping. Also, City Park has recently, of course, reopened many of its facilities. During the last 2 months, though, they had to close much of those facilities that generate revenue, sustaining huge losses. For more information and to donate, go to NOCP.org. Thank you all very much, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.
This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area. Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. To commemorate the founding of New Orleans in 1718, WYES presents this tricentennial moment in celebration of our city's past and present.
from Guadalcanal to North Africa, and from Normandy to Okinawa, the city of New Orleans made a unique and vital contribution to the United States and its allies' victory in World War II. From boats to planes to anti-aircraft shells, tens of thousands of workers churned out war supplies across the city. And at the center of this massive war effort was Andrew Jackson Higgins and Higgins Industries. The flamboyant entrepreneur designed and produced an ingenious collection of amphibious boats capable of delivering masses of men and equipment safely and efficiently from ship to shore, including the LCVP, the workhorse of the D-Day invasion. From a plant built at 501 City Park Avenue next to Delgado Trade School, boats were built around the clock and then loaded onto rail cars and taken to Bayou St. John and Lake Pontchartrain, where they were put to the test. By the war's end, Higgins employed more than 25,000 workers in 7 plants. His workforce was the first in New Orleans to be racially integrated and include women, seniors, and people with disabilities. All were paid equal wages according to their job functions, and they responded by shattering production records, turning out more than 20,000 boats. And each came with the pledge of Higgins himself.
We are building with the full knowledge that our boats will carry men whose lives depend upon them, that the failure of one boat might lose a beachhead, or an engagement, or a campaign.
Higgins boats were used in every major American amphibious operation in the European and Pacific theaters. They were so crucial to the success of those operations that after the war, President Dwight D. Eisenhower called Higgins the man who won the war for the U.S. All but forgotten after the war, Higgins and his boats were the inspiration for historian and author Stephen Ambrose to found the D-Day Museum, which later became the National World War II Museum here in New Orleans. I'm Tom Gregory, and this has been your New Orleans Tricentennial Moment.
WYES's New Orleans Tricentennial Moments are brought to you by the Miro Foundation and presented in association with the Historic New Orleans Collection. Additional support provided by the Gail and Tom Benson Charitable Foundation.